Hi everyone, it's me, your girl, the Kinky Witch, and I'm coming through today with a very quick video on where to go to find your natal birth chart. Now, this came about because my sister, Tony Rebel, while watching my midheaven career readings for July, basically said, sis, like, what's a natal chart? What's a birth chart? Where do I even find one? And should you be putting this in your journal? And so, as a reference, right, I'm working on creating a healing and manifesting with Mercury retrograde journal. I'm working with spirit to put this together. It is going to be very simple, guys. Spirit, when I was getting stressed about it, spirit was like, no, like, do what I'm asking. I just want simple. I want something simple, user friendly, right? It's not going to have a lot of pizzazz. I mean, it will have pizzazz, but it's just not going to be busy, right? Mercury retrograde is already a busy time, and this journal is aimed and geared towards helping you to use those energies to heal yourself, release yourself, manifest the things that you want in your life. People always are so afraid of Mercury retrograde and retrograde energies, but sometimes when retrograde energies comes through, it's because you got unfinished business that you got to resolve. And this is the time to do so, right? This is the time when the universe opens the window and say, this time you can go back. This time you can release. This time you can refocus. This time you can realign, right? So, with that being said, I said instead of putting it in the journal where it doesn't belong, let me make a quick video and explain this to people who probably don't know, right? So, for those newbies out there are other people on YouTube that can go deep into astrology. And I encourage you to find your peoples, right? But if you just want a quick tour of, okay, how do I even find my birth chart? I'm your girl. So we are on Cafe Astrology, and I'm going to navigate while we're on here. So I'm just going to go to Cafe Astrology Home. This is the home page. And over here under the site menu options, we're going to select birth chart interpretations. Now, once we navigate to the birth chart interpretations page, you are going to have the ability, like trying to get rid of all of these as when I can, the commercials or adverts whenever I can. So this page here gives you everything you'll need to know about what your natal chart is and helps you to break down what will I be looking at. Am I interested in looking at this information, right? Because cosmologically, we all have a cosmological blueprint. We were all born to a certain person on a certain day at a certain time in a certain location. And while all of that was happening, the moon, the stars, the planets, they were doing their cosmic dance up above. And that dictates who we are. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click the free astrology report link. And so I've went ahead and I've created a mythical person by the name of Bean. Now, Bean was born on the 1st of the 1st, 1980 in New York City, New York, United States of America at 6 p.m. Now, it's already preloaded. I'm going to go there in a minute, but if you're new and you get navigated to this page, all you will have is the option to create a new chart. You select that, you fill in the information that I just mentioned. You can put your name or an alias. It guides you to whichever you choose to use, right? So, but once you've done that, once you've looked at your birth chart and you come back, your profile will be up. So this is Bean. And let's go see what Bean's natal chart tells us. It goes into an introduction of your birth chart report. It's a very detailed introduction. I would tell you to take the time to read it. And this is the information that I put in here, right? The person's name is Bean. Her pronoun is she. They have a she, he, they option. Um, New York, New York, United States is the birthplace. The date of birth is the January 1st, 1980, and the time of birth. Now, this is on military time, but it was 6 p.m. So let's get into the birth chart. The birth chart talks about the planet's positions, the ascendants, and the houses. Now, yes, this may be goobly gosh or goobly gook, or however you want to say it. To people who don't know what a birth chart is, this is just going to be the quick Reddit version, right? This is going to be, am I the asshole for not knowing what my birth chart is version? Sorry. So here is the first chart we are going to look at, and that is the zodiac placement and alignment with the planets in the tropical, I forgot, Western tropical chart or Western tropical system. I think that's what they call it. I'm not an astrologer, people. I play one on TV. So it tells you that the sun was in Capricorn. We know the person was born January 1st, and that's Capricorn season. 10 degrees. The moon was in Cancer, 5 degrees. Mercury was in Sagittarius, 29 degrees. Now, 29 degrees is the end point for transiting a sign, transiting a house, for any transit that is happening. The transits go from 0 degrees to 29 degrees. So Mercury was transiting and was leaving Sagittarius because it was at the end point, 29 degrees, right? Which kind of would make a little sense because Capricorn, right, comes after Sagittarius. Venus is in Aquarius, 12 degrees. Mars is in Virgo, 14 degrees. Jupiter is in Virgo, 10 degrees. Saturn is in Virgo at 26 degrees. Now, you notice here that we have 3 separate planets that were in Virgo, right? That can happen. Sometimes you will have multiple planets transiting a particular sign, and sometimes you'll have no planet transiting through a sign, and you won't have that sign show up in your natal chart, right? Because none of your personal planets, as these are called, are transiting your sign. Now, some of these planets are also have an orbit that is a generational orbit. So, generationally, people who are born in 1980 will have a particular planet transiting through a particular zodiac alignment during that time. I'm not going to go deep into that with you, but that is just for reference. So if someone says to you, oh, and I'm throwing that out there, oh, my Pluto is in Libra. Well, we know Pluto has a very long orbit. So we may have groups and generations of people, right, that have that same placement. And that's just an example, people. It's not a specific, it's an example, okay? So we have Uranus in Scorpio. We have Neptune in Sagittarius. Now, right again, here's another planet in Sagittarius. We have Pluto in Libra, Lilith in Virgo, the North Node in Virgo. So Lilith is what they consider the dark moon, the new moon, right? And then the North Node is in Virgo. So Lilith and the North Node are actual nodal points, nodal axes, nodal references, and that will always mean the moon. When you hear anyone talk about nodal axes, nodal positionings, they're referring to what the moon is doing. Because remember, the moon also has an orbital rotation around the sun and around our planet. Okay. So let's go into the next chart. Before we do, I want to talk about this R right here. This R talks about retrograde energy. So what does this tell us? We can decipher from that information that Jupiter was retrograding through Virgo. And at the time of Bean's birth, it was at 10 degrees. Okay, so that's what the R stands for. Not everyone has a retrograding planet in their sign, in their natal chart, I should say. So keep that in mind as well. So let's go to the Placitudes orb, which it talks about the orb are usually the natal chart is given to you in a circle. So that's the Placidius orb, as it's called. The first house is going to be your ascendant house, and the ascendant is in the Cancer is in the ascendant in the first house at 28 degrees. I have to say that right. Leo is in the second house at 18 degrees. Virgo is in the third house at 12. Libra is in the fourth at 12. Also, guys, you will notice that a lot of numbers will vibrate multiple times throughout a person's birth chart. Now, numerologically, that is important, right? Because each number has a defined meaning with it. So to see 12 repeating itself, to see 10 repeating itself, I think what else repeats itself? 19 and 1829, right? To see those numbers repeat themselves, it's important, right? And that's a whole other video. We're not going to get into that. There's so many facets here just by looking at the natal chart that we can get into. We can get into the planets and their positions. What does that mean? We can get into the houses. What do the houses themselves mean and represent? And then to take it further, what does it mean when you have a certain planet at a certain point in a certain house? What does that mean, right? So everything has meaning on the birth chart, but this is just a literal quick, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to focus on. Here's where you can go and get it, right? So let's go back to Scorpio in the fifth house, Sagittarius in the sixth, Capricorn in the seventh, Aquarius in the eighth, Pisces in the ninth, Aries is in the 10th, which is the MC, the medium Kali or the midheaven, and that is your house of professional career, your professional career, your public persona, anything to do with your career, anything to do with how the public perceives you. And I just did a reading and they are up on my page here at the Kinky Witch underscore T's on YouTube that looks at your midheaven, and it's a career reading. You know, what spirit's guidance for your career for July? Because everybody's sometimes focused on their sun, moon, and rising. And I'm like, okay, but your job looks like it sucks and you look like you're having a time. What's going on in your midheaven? And people are like, my what? I was like, your career sector. And so I realized that people were just so focused on just those primary aspects that they're not looking at other places, right? Like people who are like, I'm so unlucky in love. I'm like, yeah, but you keep dating the same type of person. Like, where's your Venus? And people are like, my what? I'm like, what? What do you mean what? Like, your Venus. What sign is your Venus in? And who is really ideally compatible towards you? So it's important, guys, to know these things like, where's your Mars? What's your trigger? Right? Bean has their Mars in Virgo. What's their trigger? Virgos love opulence. Virgos love to be neat. They have their lives together. A trigger for a Virgo, and this could literally just be one, so don't quote me, not all Virgos are this way, but a trigger for a Virgo is having someone come in their house and destroy their things. Because Virgons work hard for everything they have, right? So that may trigger their Mars, and that Mars energy is pure fire. So be careful. We have Taurus in the 11th house, Gemini in the 12th house, and if I didn't say it, we have Libra in the 4th house. So that is what planets and signs are in your natal chart and your houses. And just to go down, they kind of sum it up for us, right? So we have our sun in the 6th house, the moon is in the 12th house, the Mercury is in the 6th house, Venus is in the 7th house, Mars is in the 3rd, Jupiter the 2nd, Saturn the 3rd, Uranus the 5th, Neptune the 5th, Pluto the 4th, Lilith is in the third, and the North Node is in the second. And we know that the MC is in the 10th house, and that is Aries. Okay. So those are important things to know on your chart. I love cafe astrology because it then goes further into discussing like other aspects, right? Like how many masculine sign, feminine signs, cardinal, fixed, mutable, fire, earth, air, water. Like what is the ratio that you have within your natal chart placements? Then it goes into the aspects, right? So you'll hear someone says, oh, the moon is conjunct the sun. What does that mean? Or the moon is in opposition to the sun. What does that mean? So everything has meaning, and cafe astrology does a great job of explaining this to you, right? So definitely go ahead and take a look. Let's look at the moon real quick. It says the moon represents the emotional responses, unconscious predestination, and self-image. The moon represents the emotions, and the moon sign shows how a person expresses himself when at home, at ease, and comfortable. So the moon, right, whatever house the moon is in, is going to highlight your ease of being at home, right, of just loving on yourself, taking on yourself. Also, the moon gives mother energy, right? So those are just some aspects. So the moon will be considered a feminine aspect, a feminine placement in your natal chart. So the moon is in Cancer, which I love because Cancer is also like all about family and nurturing. So the moon is at home in the sign of Cancer, as the moon is the natural ruler of the sign. So you will learn that there are signs that have planetary rulers, and some signs share multiple planets, right? So Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury. So that's just something, to keep in back of your head. Moon in Cancer. Natives have a large potential to get in touch with the feelings and moods of others. Often they're quite wrapped up within themselves. Their memories of the past are outstanding, especially for all things emotional. So don't think you can go ahead and hurt somebody with a Cancer moon and then come back and be like, oh, forgive me. They're like, what am I forgiving you for? And then you tell a side of the story, they're going to stop you in the trap. But like, that's not why I cried. I cried because of this. I cried because you did this. I was hurt because you said this. So be careful. I tell my Cancer niece all the time, I go, ooh, Cancer. Y'all are dangerous people. So it says here the moon is also in the 12th house. The moon in the 12th house makes this person curious and inquisitive by nature, although more of an observer than a person who asks many questions. Being likes peace and quiet and being alone. Okay. People will be like, oh, Bean's a wallflower, but no, she is observing what you're looking at. That's literally what they just said. They're like, mm-hmm. So being over here watching everything, she sees everything. She's not gonna talk, but she's the friend that at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, what you see? What did you see? Because I know you saw some stuff. While I was over here being a social butterfly, you were over here clocking everyone and everything, right? It tells us that there's an opposition between the moon and Mercury, right? So there's a conflict here between the head and the heart. So opposition meaning conflict. Mercury rules the mind. Mercury rules thoughts, words. Mercury is an air sign. Remember, mercurial energy is all airy. It's all methodological, right? Writers have strong Mercury placements. So the moon talks about the heart. So right here it's telling me Bean has issues letting the head and the heart speak as one, right? So that's just aspects of the natal chart that I think you guys would love and appreciate, particularly the ease in which cafe astrology presents it. So I definitely encourage you to go ahead, put your information in, get this. Now, if you don't have a birth time, because a lot of places, a lot of cultures don't really capture birth times, you don't have to put any. It will just not be as specific, right? It will give you the general, okay, we know this was here during this day, but it won't drill it down as someone who has knows their time of birth would be able to. Also, twins don't have an identical birth chart, right? um People who are born is a part of a pack, as I love to call them: quadruplets, triplets, sextuplets, twins, fraternal and or identical, because one has to come first. That time of birth is key. So if one was born 5 minutes after the other, guess what? There's a 5 minutes difference, and the planets do a lot in 5 minutes. Okay. Let's jump to Astro DN. So I have a profile here. So I just want to show you though what the home screen looks like, right? At the top, you can sign up for a profile here, or you can sign up to be able to do things with Astro Dance. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to sign into my user profile. And because remember, we already had Bean going, we're going to select her. And then we're going to select that we want a chart drawing of the ascendant. So here we go. This is Bean's astrological chart. See if I could get rid of most of these advertisements so we don't really. So let's see. Okay, this is good. So this is Bean. Remember what I said? It looks like a lot of the activities is going to be on one particular end of this person's natal chart, and everything looks like there's a lot of action here on the lower half of the chart. So this is what a traditional birth chart looks like, a traditional natal chart looks like, because it breaks down into sectors and houses. So now between here in this like little quarter slice of this pie, you'll find the first house, the second house, the third house. Then between this quarter slice of the pie, you'll find the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. And then between the third quarter slice of the pie, the seventh, eighth, ninth, and finally the fourth quarter slice of the pie, you have the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Now, even though, okay, there are 12 houses, if you look at the time of transit, you'll see that these houses don't necessarily align perfectly. So the first house is in Cancer here, and then also Leo, okay? While the second house is also in Leo and in Virgo. And the third house is in Virgo and Libra. The fourth house is in Libra and Scorpio. The fifth house is in Scorpio and Sagittarius. The sixth house is in Sagittarius briefly and Capricorn. Seventh house is briefly in Capricorn and Aquarius. The eighth house is in Aquarius and Pisces. The ninth house is in Pisces and Aries. The 10th house is in Aries and Taurus. The 11th house is in Taurus and Gemini. And the 12th house is a little bit in Gemini and a whole lot in Cancer. So it will not always line up perfectly. That is why the degree in which a sign and a planet is transiting in your natal chart is very important, because here it says the sun is in 10 degrees of Capricorn. So here's the sun, 10 degrees. And yes, because look, it is leaving Sagittarius, only that little slice left, right? 10 degrees. So let's look at this one. This is Mercury. Mercury is in 29 degrees of Sagittarius right here. That little end point, you see it? It's like right there. We have Venus in 12 degrees of Aquarius. So this is important. Chiron is referred to as the wounded healer. And I don't know a lot about Chiron, but I do know there's a lot of work and information out there about Chiron. And Chiron is a key planet that I think over the next couple months, I'm going to make sure I start getting a deeper understanding of Chiron. But if you look, it's 9 degrees in Taurus, and it wasn't even mentioned on the Cafe Astrology natal chart because not a lot of people speak about Chiron and or account for Chiron because Chiron's not a planet that we see in our solar system, right? Pluto's kind of like the last planet. Chiron's even further out there, as astrologers will let us know. So, like I said, for astro.com will be for the more advanced person interested in mastering and understanding their natal chart. If you're a beginner, I would ask that you please stick to Cafe Astrology because if you are not versed in what a sign is, what a planet is, like if you can't tell the difference, you're just going to confuse yourself. And I do love how Cafe Astrology has it broken down and broken out for us and also gives you a description. What does it mean when your sun is in Capricorn? And you can basically read it and be like, does this apply to me? Right? Bits and pieces will, parts of it will, not everything will, because everyone is different, remember. All right. So, everyone, that has been your brief intro to what a natal chart is. The key things to look for: your sun, your moon, your ascendant, which is your rising sign, your midheaven, which is your medium Kali. Now, understand that your ascendant and your descendant will always be 6 months apart from each other, right? So we see here Cancer, and over here we have Aquarius, right? No, 28 degrees in Capricorn. So this is still Capricorn, right? And then the midheaven, we have 12 degrees off Aries. And then we have 12 degrees off Libra. So, and then, okay, but what house is this in, right? So it's a lot, guys. But there are so many wonderful, interesting, and fascinating YouTubers out here that give you content just solely on astrology. For one, I listen to Pam Greger. I listen to Molly McCord. I listen to Tanya Gabrielle. And those are just 3 that I listen to when it comes to the astrology and the signs and what's happening in their influence and the impact they're having on us as a people, as a collective, but then also on self, right? Because it always starts with self in order to matriculate into the whole. This has been wonderful. I'm enjoying this, and I hope to see you soon. Ashe, y'all.